All right, so here's Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes is probably most well known for the Leviathan, which he wrote in 1651. Not a big, crazy thing that if you look at what we were looking at in terms of the history that we just covered, 1651 is 2 years into the Commonwealth. It's a couple years after Charles I has been beheaded. And as the video that you just watched was pointed out, I mean, Hobbes, he watched this hot mess. It's been 10 years of civil war, and now we're entering 10 years of a pretty uncertain, pretty chaotic Commonwealth. And he's going, man, I'm not saying Charles and the Stuarts were great kings, but this sucks. And so that's kind of the place that he's coming from. He's also going to, another thing he's probably well known for is that he applies that mechanistic approach that we talked about when we talked about Newton. And we talked about this, following Descartes and all that last week, is this new mechanistic ideas. He takes those things that we were being talked about in physics and all that, and he applies it to government. He starts to say, well, let's look at sort of, instead of thinking about, human beings as human beings, they are, but let's think about how they kind of interact with each other, like atoms interacting with each other, and what that kind of does. So he's going to say, look, let's go back. Right now, everything we have that we think about is colored by the fact that we live in this government. But let's imagine people in a state of nature. So imagine a time before there were governments. I mean, what was that like? And as the video said, it's not a big secret. It was a lot like that English Civil War. There are no rules. It's Thunderdome. It's chaotic. It's dogs sleeping with cats. Life is nasty, brutish, and short. You're trying to survive. Every day is trying to survive. Every day is either kill or be killed. It is a hot mess out there. What government does, government comes in and says, kind of acts as this powerful referee that kind of keeps us all separated from each other. Without that, we're at each other's throats. To survive, people have to figure out how to come together. When you're in this sort of hot, civil war-y mess, they have to figure out how to come together. They have to figure out how to live with each other, and that's going to require a government. So, the government's going to be formed when all sign the contract. So the video also talked about how he was not a big fan of this social contract theory. That's true, but that's how people thought about it. It's how we think about it today, is this idea that we're all kind of make this agreement to be in this together. I'll follow the rules if you follow the rules, and here's the rules right here, and we all agree as to how rules can be changed. That's fine. But what he's going to say is this. Look, it's not as easy as you're making it out to be. So the government's going to be formed when everybody signs this contract. Again, nobody really signs anything, but you get the idea. Everybody reduces their wills to one will. So here's the deal. Let's say that I'm here in America right now, and I go outside and I say, you know what, I really want that car over there. So I just go and take that car. I say, you know what, I don't really agree to all those things in the social contract. I want to be able to take people's car. Well, we can't have that. We can't have people going around saying, I want to change the deal of the contract. I want to renegotiate the contract. Once the contract's there, the only way it's going to work is if nobody gets to renegotiate the contract. The contract has to be set. Everybody has to reduce their wills to one will. We all basically say, I give up my right to make decisions, to make choices about this, and I give it over to something else. We'll call that thing government. So if I go and steal somebody's car, the government stops me. And if I don't like the government stopping me, it doesn't matter. The government can use ultimate force. It can even execute me at some point if it needs to, because I don't like the contract. That's essentially, and the reason it can do that is because we've all given these powers to the government in order to create this order. The people in the government are formed simultaneously. There is no people separate from the government. Remember we talked about this when we talked about the vindicate? The vindicate, that idea where the people can decide if the king is the right king or not. Hobbes is saying there is no people. There is just this right here. You can't really see this very well. This was the front piece, the sort of almost like the cover for the book. And you can see here, this is the Leviathan, this man here. But if you look closely, it's made up of different people. Essentially, the government is the people. But without the government, there is no people. I don't know if I'm saying that right. They come together, and we create this thing called an artificial man, the Leviathan. But we do this at the same time. There is no sort of moment where we have a people that then form a government. There's just the government. We create an artificial man, Leviathan. We create artificial chains, which we'll call laws. And there's no takebacks. You can't just say, I don't really like that deal. Let's renegotiate the deal. You can't do that. So it's not like a contract in that sense where you can renegotiate. It is set once and for all. So, if it's essentially a contract, like what does the government have to do? What's the government's purpose? And the government has one purpose, and that is to protect the people. It exists to create the order in which you can survive and not have to live in a place that is nasty, brutish, and short. Government takes the power from everyone, and it then provides this island of security where you then can live your life without constantly being in fear of survival. No government acts unjustly in seeking this goal. If a government says you need to be executed for the sake of everyone else, that is not unjust. That is the government operating fairly. The government says you got to go to jail, you broke the law, that is not unjust. No government acts unjustly in seeking the goal of protecting the people. There's no right to resist the sovereign. You don't have, and this is another important thing. Let's say you don't think the government is actively protecting the people. Well, you actually don't get to make that judgment. You don't get to say, I don't think it's doing that, so I'm going to resist it. So honestly, there's no right to resist. You just can't do it. It might be inconvenient, but it is the cost of society. If you want to not live in that chaotic English Civil War world, it's not great, but there can be worse. It's one of those things where it's sort of say, look, is life under Kim Jong-un pleasant? It is not pleasant. In North Korea, it is not pleasant. But it would be even more unpleasant if the government didn't exist. Or it'd be even more unpleasant if everybody thought that they had the right to overthrow the government. Because here's the problem, right? I come in and I say, I don't like the government. I'm going to overthrow it. Okay, well then what's going to prevent somebody the next day from overthrowing the government I just put in? And then the next day from that. There's no stability then. If you want the order, if you want the stability, this is what you're going to have. And it's what you're going to get. All right. So that is Hobbes. I'm not trying to paint that as a horrible picture. I'm trying to make the comparison that when we talk about revolution, we talk about resistance, what Hobbes is trying to say is that it's not a choice between this bad government and a possibly better government. He's saying it's a choice between this bad government and some stability and complete chaos, and it's not even a choice at that point. Okay, so now John Locke, and then we'll come back and finish up.